today I'm a little more laid back. I have a little bit more empathy for other people, but empathy for other people doesn't always necessarily produce the best entertainment or the best radio shows or TV shows. So I think he has mellowed. The guy's 67 years of age, and so he was at the top of his field until his divorce. After his divorce, hardly anyone seemed to speak about him anymore. And then once he went to satellite radio around 2006, he completely dropped off the radar. So I'd never hear, it's been more than a decade since I've heard anyone say, hey, did you listen to Howard Stern today? So I see he gets much more respectful treatment in the New York Times, but I never hear anyone in real life. Just like with The Daily Show, once Jon Stewart left, I don't know anyone in my life or anyone who I follow on Twitter who says, oh, did you see the Daily Show? It seems to have completely dropped off the map. So the nasty edge that also led him to do a lot of ugly things and also a lot of good things, because what made him so compelling for, I think, many people in the distant right is that he was not PC, that he was willing to go against sacred cows. He was willing to say things that were relatable to the average person. And so he was not willing to let go of the O.J. Simpson being obviously guilty of a double murder. He was not willing to let go of all sorts of polite pieties that were pushed in politics and in mainstream culture. But now he's rich, he's successful. It seems to be more important to him to hang out with people who are similarly rich and successful. He doesn't want to rock the boat. He's only working 3 days a week, and it doesn't sound like anything he's doing anymore has any resonance in wider culture. No one talks about it on anyone that I follow. Nobody has said to me for more than a decade, hey, did you hear what Howard Stern said today?
It's obviously, I mean, he could have legitimately grown more mellow with age, as a lot of people do. But then again, a lot of people don't. There's the stereotype, of course, of the grumpy old man, and there is a grain of truth in that. But when it comes to Stern, he also converged toward, a consistently left-leaning political alignment, and he became rather. He wound up droning on about with his, second iteration, things that were trendy or PC or fashionable. And I don't think that that's really the product of mellowness. It seems like a calculated change in the format of his show, basically. And my take is that when he went to satellite radio in the 2000s, he expected to have much more of a following than he ultimately got. Obviously, his ratings were going to tank because listening to him for free via traditional radio was one thing, but then when you go to satellite radio, which is a subscription-based platform, a lot of people aren't going to follow him, and a lot of people didn't follow him. And so my perspective is that, of course, while he may have mellowed legitimately as the years passed, I think that his the change in the nature of his show is something that came about because he believed that his old formula was no longer working on satellite radio, and he needed some sort of shift to appear popular. There is the famous video of him from 2013 going on and on and on about his show needing to essentially liven itself up and become relevant to people in order to get big name interviews. So I think that Stern, his change may in part be based on a legitimate personal transformation. He has been in therapy for quite a while, as Luke said, but I think also it's something rather calculated when he believed that his old format wasn't working for him. And I would say that was a bad analysis on his part, because his show is just really destined to lose the overwhelming majority of its listenership when it went to a paid subscription-based satellite radio format, rather than, of course, the traditional free radio format where Stern initially became so tremendously popular.
Right. So he's making bank. I mean, he must be worth well over $100 million.
Oh, no question.
So he's got that taken care of. And now one thing for people in his position and in our position is that to some degree we depend upon access, and to some degree we depend upon just our raw reaction to events. And these two dynamics are at odds with each other. To maximize your access to interesting people, you probably need to watch what you say so that you don't needlessly irritate people. On the other hand, that makes you more watered down in the things you say. So that's always a dance between having access to people and saying raw, unfiltered things that people can't get elsewhere. And I'm not exempt from that. Howard Stern's not exempt from that. No one in this sort of space is exempt from that. But I do know that as you get older, you become less inclined to take risks, and you put more of a premium on comfort. So I remember in 1982, we flew back from California to Australia for my sister's wedding. And so my dad at the time would have been about 52 years of age. And we took boxes of my father's books. Like, I had a box under my feet on the airplane, which was not very comfortable, but we were in a very dire financial position. My parents had made the biggest financial mistake of their life, that just as interest rates were soaring, they found themselves stuck with two homes. Like, they thought they could get rid of one home, so they were paying the mortgage on two homes on a minister's salary. Times were very, very dire, so dire that they were even okay with sending me to public school. So we were carrying around these books on the plane trip to Australia so my dad could sell copies of his books at various speaking engagements that he booked around my sister's wedding. Now, normally as you get into your 50s, you don't carry around books to your speeches anymore. People just tire of that. Dennis Prager mentions this, that when he was in his 20s and 30s, maybe even into his 40s, he used to carry boxes of his books to his speaking engagements. But by the time he hit his 50s, he was no longer inclined to do that. So as you get older, you put more of a premium on comfort, and not just comfort in not physically carrying things around, but also comfort in your overall life, because there's not just the show where you want access, but you become less inclined to have a show that is at odds with what's best for the rest of your life. So I assume Howard Stern, by all appearances, has a good marriage. And I assume that the one thing that comes with that is a reasonably decent social life. And so I think he puts more of a premium. I think he's putting more of a premium on his own happiness and on his relationship with his wife, while in a previous iteration, he was willing to sacrifice his relationship with his wife for the sake of the show. Now he's willing to sacrifice his show for the sake of his relationship with his wife. And that makes the listener the loser, but it may very well make Howard Stern and his new wife the winner.
So what about his political realignment then? How would you say that factors into this?
Well, I don't think about Howard Stern primarily in political terms. I think he's probably less inclined to rock the boat with his peers, and his peers are overwhelmingly going to be on the left. So he was more of a rabble-rouser, a man speaking from the working class or from the struggling lower middle class. Now he's rich, and he's speaking like other people who are rich. I don't think he deliberately staked out any political position. I believe that these are his natural inclinations, that this reflects the worldview of the people that he has done these deals with, the people who manage him, the people who he looks to, the people he socializes with. I think it's just a natural manifestation of a change in social status and less of a need to rock the boat, because the people who do occupy the high ground in culture, particularly in media, are overwhelmingly on the left. And so it becomes very easy to just align yourself with the people who dominate your particular sphere. I remember I went into college very right wing, and then about a year or so into college, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to be a left winger? Like, let me just try this out for size. And it was effortless because all my professors were left wingers. So everybody in power over me in college was a left winger. So it became really easy to just go with the flow. Most people just go with the flow, and most of the time we don't even notice that we're going with the flow.